Dun, 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 dun.
Well, hello and welcome in to Off the Bench. It is
It's Tuesday. It's supposed to be a great week for Cincinnati sports. We had a Monday Night Football last night. We got playoff baseball tonight and tomorrow and possibly Thursday. Hopefully not Thursday. Hopefully the Reds take care of it in the first two games. But I'm Reed Mouse, alone in the seat today. No Trace. Trace is going to be doing the live watch-along for the Reds the next two nights. So he's got to keep that voice, which, by the way, I lost my voice yesterday. I don't know the last time you guys lost your voice, but I got pretty worked up watching the Bengals game. Last night, I made a dumb tweet about how I was going to run a mile for every point that the Bengals lost by. They lost by 25. Had to knock some of those out this morning. Stone Shields, producer in the chair this morning. Stone was very pleased with how the Bengals played yesterday.
Yeah, just a couple things that went wrong in the game, obviously, but not far off from, getting to where we want to get to. Obviously, that's a joke. That's about as bad as it can get. Back-to-back weeks where you've been completely embarrassed. Time to sound the panic button, sound panic alarm, whatever you got to sound. It's a problem here in Cincinnati, and that's very, very clear.
Yeah, so back-to-back weeks where you get absolutely embarrassed in different ways, but in the same outcome, which is a multiple touchdown. 38 points against the Vikings, 25 points on Monday Night Football against the Denver Broncos. And what did Zach Taylor said, these are good teams on the road. This is a tough place to play, which he's not wrong. Those are tough places to play, but absolutely embarrassed. And I feel as a fan like I'm spiraling because for the first time in my fandom or in this current era of Joe Burrow and, the period of success that we seem destined for and we're heading down. For the first time, I'm not starting to lose hope. I'm not starting to feel like things aren't going right for the Bengals. I have lost it. I truly, truly have lost any sense of where this team is headed, of any hope or desire or aspirations for the Cincinnati Bengals team. I have lost it all. I feel like I'm spiraling because I cannot think of a single positive thing going forward. Like, I don't see any dream of, we were promised, that first Super Bowl run, and we promised it ourselves. No one gave it to us, but we were just like, man, we're going to win a Super Bowl with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow said, the window is my career. And for the last few years where things have slowly gotten worse, like, I think the window's closed, or at least this current era of the window is closed. It's shut. There's bars on the window. It's blacked out curtains that are locked up. Like, you can't see a single shred of light getting through that window at all. For 2 consecutive weeks, the first 2 weeks that Joe Burrow's been hurt for an entire game, there hasn't been a single piece of the team, like a single group or scheme, where I've looked at and go, there's something there. Not a single piece of it. Offensive line, gosh, no. Quarterback, nah. Defensive line, maybe. I kept gassing up Demetrius Knight, our second-round pick linebacker. He looks good, but, what is that worth? Our secondary. I don't see a single thing on this team where I can go and say, yeah, we can build off that. We can build off that. And I used to think, as long as we got Joe Burrow, as long as we've got 9, we've got a chance to do the dang thing. We've got a chance. He is such a talented player, and he is that, an incredibly talented player. He raises up everyone around him so well that as long as he's on the field, this team's got a shot. We saw last year with Joe Burrow and the offense playing otherworldly. They could win 9 games after a slow start, and the defense held them out of the postseason. You're like, things can get better. We can still do this. I don't feel that at all, even with Joe Burrow. And I was asking Stone before the show starts. I was like, dude, he looked at me point blank and said, man, number 9's pretty good, isn't he? Tracy been on the show yesterday, and he's been a long time Joe Burrow hater. I don't know if he means it or if he's trolling, but he's been a long time hater of Joe. And he even said, you start to see how much he elevates the team around him. To where when he's not on the field, they don't look like a bad team. They look like legitimately we're going to get the first overall pick. They look like the worst team in the National Football League. To where, the Tennessee Titans don't look good, but, maybe their defense is good. Or, there's not a single phase of the game right now that the Bengals are even playing at a mediocre level. It's all terrible. Scheme, play call, offensive line play, quarterback play. I mean, you can still say we got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, but if you don't have a quarterback that can get it to him and you don't have time for him to get it to them, then what's that worth? It's the old meme that we saw back before we drafted Jamar Chase in 2021 of, Joe Burrow on his back if we have Penei Sewell, or if we don't draft Penei Sewell, the whole, the meme. I don't have to explain it. It's what it feels like right now, that it doesn't matter who we throw back there or what happens, it's not going to end well. Stoned, I alluded to the conversation we had right before we went live, where you said, and you're right, you're like, man, number 9's pretty good. And I said, yeah, he's unbelievable. He's my favorite football player ever. But I asked you, I said, even if he's here, what's the ceiling on this team? And you said,
well, nobody believes in him more than I do. So I still think the ceiling is as high as you want it to be with Joe Burrow out there. I mean, the team that he took to the Super Bowl in 2021, horrible offensive line, right? Defense, was it better than they are now? Yeah, you could make that argument, but it wasn't very good, right? So I think Joe Burrow can take this team to incredible heights. Obviously, last year he played about as good as he could, and you'd miss the playoffs. I hear you. But what he can do out on the football field, obviously, is unbelievable. And Jake Browning, unfortunately, he can't. And candidly, it's not even close. And, the issues that the Bengals have are way more apparent than when Joe Burrow's not out there. When he's out there, he can mask some things, right? I mean, this offensive line, has it been horrible this year? Yeah, but that's basically what it's always been for as long as I can remember with Joe Burrow. Just horrible. He gets the ball, the pocket collapses, and he's got to figure out a way to escape. And now when you're watching the Bengals, right, Browning takes the snap, the pocket collapses like it always does here in Cincinnati, and then Joe Burrow has the ability to get outside of it. And as a fan, when he's outside the pocket, your heart starts to race, and you go, oh, boy, here we go. Something crazy is about to happen. He's going to make a great play. And when Jake Browning exits the pocket, you go to yourself, all right, can he get close enough to out of bounds where he can throw it away, or is he going to get tackled and lose 10 yards? There's no hope when you see 6 rolling out of the pocket trying to throw.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. So lots of issues on this team. Joe Burrow, I think, is the best quarterback in the world, and I think he can cover up some of those issues. Is it good enough to win a Super Bowl? Well, when you're turning the ball over and you're penalized and all these things, no. But the reality of the situation was this. Without number 9, just not close. Not close.
It's almost like building your team around a superstar quarterback and 2 elite wide receivers isn't the best way, which everyone told us isn't the best way to build a roster. And I always said, what were we supposed to do? Let T. Higgins walk? Let Jamar Chase walk? I don't know. It just seems like the kind of situation we were put in, and, we're just living that up. But listen, Joe Burrow's unbelievable, but based off what I've seen the last 2 weeks, and really based off what I've seen this entire year, even with Joe Burrow back there, to think that if he's here, this team can still compete for a Super Bowl seems point blank idiotic. It seems so far-fetched that even my always strive for the best, most positive outcome brain can't wrap my head around it. And I get that I'm being too reactive to what I've seen in the last 2 weeks. And I hope that in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we can go back and look at this first 15 minutes of this show and go, man, how silly was I back then? The same way that we look in, the first episode of Off the Bench since it came back, we killed the Red season. And it's been declared dead 4 times in the 3 or 4 weeks that we've been running this show. And here they are playing tonight. against the Los Angeles Dodgers for a wild card to advance in the postseason. So I hope that happens. And in 4 weeks that I look back at this segment and this show and I go, man, I was probably overreacting just a bit. But I'm being incredibly truthful to what I'm feeling in this current moment, which is even with Joe Burrow playing at the peak of his powers, this team is a 10-win team. And you go in the postseason, you say, yeah, it's a 10-win team. And maybe you can beat a Bills or a Chiefs or a Ravens or any of the good AFC teams in one game in the playoffs. But you can't go on a 3-game run. Not with the way that this team's built. Not with the way that this team's coached. Which brings me up to my next point, which is a guy that I've defended on this show many a times. I've defended for years now. When other people have wanted his job taken, I've been like, hey, let's pump the brakes. And I've laid out the reasons that I've defended Zach Taylor in the past. And a big one is that before he took over the job, this team had not won a playoff or not advanced in the postseason since 1990. So he did something for the first time in 30 years. Before he took over this job, this team had won 5 playoff games, this franchise. In their 51-year history before he took over the job, they had won 5 playoff games. Under his first, 4 years? In his first 4 years, they won 5 playoff games. So he matched the franchise total. I said, you got to give credit to that. And, he has gotten credit for that in the terms of millions of dollars paid by at the expense of the Cincinnati Bengals for the past few years. And guys like me, fools like me, have defended him. And when the glaring problems with his play call, with his teams not being ready at the start of the season had frequently popped up, I could spin it and go, well, they don't start well, but they sure do end well. The play calls, it's not as tricky. You can't be Kyle Shanahan with this offensive line and this team build. You kind of just got to let Joe do Joe's thing. You can spin it with the narrative, but it's becoming increasingly true that it was all 9. It was all 9. It was all Joe this entire time. And the thing that I gave Zach Taylor credit for, after we beat the Jags, and the biggest thing that I've always given him credit for was the following. It was pretty clear that the players appreciated playing for him and fought hard for him. And they were the least penalized team, I think, for 2 years running in 2023 and 2024. And those are all marks of good coaching. We used to cover all these high school football games. The quickest way to tell if a team was poorly coached, the quickest way other than the score, and that happens when a team is, they just run it and they're just outmanned or whatever. But the quickest way you can tell if a team is poorly coached is how many penalties they had. Well, now for 2 games, and you could say that yesterday's game was called tight, and it was. It was called very, very tight. Procedural penalties. I can't pronounce those 2 words back to back. But the penalties are adding up, and this team's quitting. This team's got no fight in them. So even me, who had defended Zach as long as I could, would always go, man, this team fights. And that's what you need out of a leader, a team that just – it's the same thing we say about Terry. It's like, this team's got some grit. This Reds team's got some grit. Most Bengals team, I thought, fought. But in the second half of the Vikings game, nothing. When the going got tough yesterday, nothing. And the defense, as the game progressed, just got worse and worse. And I don't know if that was just them getting worn out because the offense punted every 3 plays. I'm sure that's a great majority of it. But the tackling was bad as the game progressed. It all was just terrible. And I sat here on this show and I said, when Joe Burrow goes down, those guys that wanted Zach Taylor gone. Unfortunately, and I said this kind of tongue-in-cheek because I was like, I think Zach Taylor should be here. But I said, unfortunately, Zach Taylor's going to get another year because he's got an excuse built in. We didn't have our franchise quarterback. When I'm here and Joe's here, good things happen. They had a 4 consecutive season of playing winning football. And I've already listed the accomplishments. You beat Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. You go to the Super Bowl. You go to the AFC Championship game the next year. You beat the Bills in their own stadium, in their preferred climate, the snow. You do all those things. You play in the AFC North, which is a long time. It may not be the best division in football, but I don't think there's a single football fan that would deny it's consistently a top 3 division in football. This might be the only year where it's not very good. And you're playing in that tough environment. You're playing in those tough games. You play the tough schedule. And, you consistently kind of win, and you're back in. You look better at the end of the year than you do at the beginning of the year. But this can't continue. I'm the lowest I've been as a Bengals fan because for the first time, I don't know a single team in the NFL that is that's headed in a worse direction than us. Even the gosh darn Cleveland Browns and their 17-man quarterback room, I think have a better route than we currently have. And you can laugh at that. And this might be where I'm most overreacting. But I just cannot see a path forward where this gets better without stripping the whole thing down at its studs. Because what we're going to do more than likely, listen, this thing's, I don't want to kill the season because we could win 3 games in a row. Oh, yeah. But we play the Vikings or we play the Packers and the Lions coming up the next 2 games, and I just don't think those things are going to end very well at all. We might play a little better. It might be a little more competitive, but I can't see a route in which we win. To where this is going to get bad in a hurry, and it's going to get really loud in the locker room. It's already starting to get a little chippy, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. Jamar's going to get disgruntled. Trey is going to have some back flare up, and he can't play unless he gets traded. Those kinds of things are where we're heading as a team. And what we're going to do, more than likely, unless we fire Zach Taylor and sell off some pieces, what we're going to do is we're going to go in the offseason, make a couple signings here and there, guy on the offensive line, maybe a defensive tackle, maybe a cornerback, and we're going to try it again next year. Hopefully Joe's healthy. And like I said, even if Joe's healthy, what are we? A 10-win team? If everyone's playing above their standards, we're winning on the margins at every single level, at the offensive line, running back, defensive line, cornerback. Everyone's playing above where they are projected to play, including Joe. The ceiling is an 11-win team, and you win the division. That's if everything goes well. What happens if just some things go poorly? Oh, you're back to a 9-8-win team, and we're just doing this all again. And this is where I say, I can't think of a team off the top of my head that's in a worse spot than we are. Or at least a less defined route going forward. Team just middling and nothingness. To where our only hope is that Joe Burrow saves this franchise like he has at times before. And even there, we don't know if he's ever going to play, dude. Stone, am I off my rocker? And this chair does rock quite a bit. Am I off my rocker when I say that the Cincinnati Bengals have the least defined route going forward, or I guess the better way of putting it, is there a team in the NFL that has a more murky future than the Cincinnati Bengals?
Probably not. I mean, there's nothing really to be positive about here at this point. I think a lot of us thought they would come into the game last night. Did we think they were going to win? Probably not, but they would at least show some fight, keep it competitive for at least 3/4 of the game, and obviously that didn't end up happening either. It's pretty clear here that they're very Joe Burrow dependent, and without him, there really is no direction in which they can go as a team. So things are very murky right now for Cincinnati. There's nothing, there's not really one thing where you can say, well, at least that went well, or at least that's trending in the right direction, right?
Right.
Because you can't throw the ball, you can't run the ball, you can't tackle. After the first couple of games, you can't turn the opposing offense over. You're giving up explosive plays. All right, you can't get off the field on 3rd down. on defense. You can't come up with third down conversions on offense. Shoot, your punter was punting all night last night, and he had 2 shanks too. So there's really nothing you can hang your hat on and say this at least is going in the right direction. I mean, Dax Hill, who I think is one of the best players on this team, probably the best player on the defense besides Hendrickson, even he, I thought it was good coverage there at the end of the half, but even he gives up that big touchdown right before halftime. So there's just nobody really that you can say, all right, they're playing quality football for us. The only guy that even comes close to mind is Dax Hill. But beyond that, really nothing is going right. And the biggest part for me that is hard to come to terms with is the fact that there seemed to be a plan on the first drive. It's like, okay, we're getting the screen game going. That worked in 23 with Browning, right? That was great. We're getting, some stuff going into the flat. We're getting the ball in Jamar's hands there on that first drive. Great first drive. You can make the argument you think they should have went for it. At the time, I was fine taking the points. You're on the road. You got blown out last week. Let's start with some positive momentum, put 3 on the board, right? They do that, and then you're thinking, okay, we can hang in there in this game. And then obviously all you do for the remainder of the game is punt, and you got away from some of the things that you were successful doing on that first drive. Now, could you point to the penalties saying, well, you were behind the sticks? Maybe that's why. But at the end of the day, there's really nothing positive that transpired at all in that football game after the first drive. So when you're trying, if you're Zach Taylor this week, he's been in these spots where he's faced some adversity, but what can you say to the team and say, all right, this is going in the right direction, or we're close in this area? I mean, there's nothing positive that you can take away from this game.
There's nothing positive that you can take away from this team, not just the game that they played. It is mind-numbing what has transpired the last 2 weeks. Truly. I wasn't even thinking about certain plays because I was just getting everything off my chest in this first 20 minutes of the show. I was just getting everything off my chest. We're like, man, I don't know where this team's going. You got to get rid of Zach. And I'll go back to, where I think this team, like what needs to happen going forward to at least get this team in a direction, get this train on rails, any rails, and not just derailed on the side of the highway. But I go back, you mentioned it, that first drive. And that is one thing that I've always given Zach Taylor credit for, and it showed again last night where, that first drive worked really well. You're moving the ball. It kind of stalls out. But think about this. It's an opening drive. It's third down. And we're getting the ball to playmakers. We're getting the ball to Jamar and a screen, and, we get a first down. We're getting the ball to Chase Brown in some open space, kind of running the ball okay too. And we get like a third and medium depth, and we're like, all right, we've got it to Jamar. We got it to Chase, who's our other playmaker. It's T. Higgins, and, we lob a ball up. What does T. Higgins do very well? He gets the high point. Honestly, probably better than anybody in the league, at least better than the guys that I watch on a consistent basis. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head that might be, maybe JJ. But T. Higgins, one of the best high point receivers in the league. We throw it up to him. He brings it down. We get a first down. Move the ball. Keep on. It's third and goal. We run a fade again to T. It was successful once. It was like Zach's like, ha. I got something they can't defend. We're just going to lob it up to old T. So third and goal. We try a lob fade route, and it wasn't there. Jake threw it way too soon. Didn't let the play develop to a point where T couldn't even jump for the ball. It's terrible. All right, kick it, put points on the board, we take a lead. We get the ball back after a 3 and out, and it's third and short. Zach's like, I've got a play they won't see coming. What if you run on third and short every play, every time to this point? Let's do it again. And we throw up another fade to T. Higgins. And I try my hardest to not complain about play call. Because to be honest, I don't know scheming that well. So and most of you guys don't either. I'm not saying all you guys don't, but most of you guys don't know a thing about scheming either. Zach Taylor knows way more about it than we'll ever learn. That's why he gets paid millions. That's why he's had some success in the NFL and why he's where he is. And I think that fans, it's the easiest thing to complain about when it comes to play call because you're always right, or at least you're always set up in a good spot to where if the play call, if you see a play and it doesn't work, the play call's terrible. What was that play? But when it works, you don't say anything because the play worked. And it could be a terrible play call that we just got lucky on, but it doesn't matter because the play worked. So it just is a bad spot. I just try to stay away from it because I try to stay away from arguments that you always win because it's probably not a good argument, right? Because you can always go like, whatever. But in the first 2 drives, every time it's 3rd and short, we just toss one up to T. We can't do anything else. AJ Worse, who was in the chat all night yesterday, and I don't know if he's in the chat today, but AJ Worse put up a really good point. He's like, with Jake, they never attack the middle of the field. And this is a test for a lot of quarterbacks to where they're really good. You know, it's why they tell you that you shouldn't have a short quarterback. Not that Jake Brown is short or anything like that. But you shouldn't have a short quarterback because they can't throw the ball over the middle of the field because they can't see it. Kyler Murray can't throw the ball in the middle of the field. Russell Wilson can't throw the ball over the middle of the field. It's guys like Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen that can throw the ball over the middle of the field. And we never do that. And if we do, it's a screenplay to Jamar Chase in the midline. Just so many things, man. It was a disaster, an embarrassment on all fronts, to where I feel quite honestly ridiculous for sitting here. We're now 28 minutes into the show, and I've done nothing but yell about how terrible the Cincinnati Bengals are, but I don't know what other reaction to give. I'm talking with my hands this entire time because I'm so animated about this. Everything. Zach Taylor has failed this team at every front now. And I said 2 weeks ago 2 things. When Joe Burrow went down and we beat the Jacksonville Jaguars to go 2-0, I said 2 things. I said, Zach, I'll give you credit on keeping this team moving forward and fighting, because they did. In the second half of that game, when Joe Burrow went down, they fought. And secondly, if you don't win one of these next 2 games, the Minnesota Vikings or the Denver Broncos, things are going to get bad in a hurry. And you'll run the risk of losing the locker room. They not only lost those games, they lost those games, doing quick math in my head, and I'm not the best at math, a combined 63 points. An average of 31.5 points a game. And then you look at the schedule going ahead. We're now, it was 8.5 points before the game yesterday for the Detroit Lions. I don't know what the spread is. It should change. It should be double digits at this point. We go to Green Bay. That's going to be near double-digit point spread. We play the Pittsburgh Steelers on a short week. Mike Tomlin versus Zach Taylor. Aaron Rodgers versus Jake Browning on a short week. Good luck to us. And then you get some reprieve playing a bad New York Jets team and a mediocre Chicago Bears team. Then the bye week. And I saw Drew Garrison tweet 2 things yesterday. First off, he's tweeted that I looked like Bo Nix. I look nothing like Bo Nix. Not all blonde people look alike. Secondly, he tweeted out a hilarious tweet. Flex us out of the Thanksgiving game. I don't want to yell at my grandma. Yeah, in a couple months on Thanksgiving, I'm going to be down in Florida with my in-laws, and I'm going to be wearing my Bengals jersey all geared up, and I'm going to get so frustrated when we get railroaded by the Baltimore Ravens, who also might be bad. Maybe we'll score some points that game because their defense looks terrible. All right. Stone, is there anything that I have said today that you want me to pump the brakes on in the first 30 minutes? Is there anything where I've gone a little too overboard?
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that at all. Last year, obviously, you're losing football games, but it was, if this call goes your way or, if you don't turn it over at this time or you get one stop on defense. There was a lot of excuses that you can make with last year's team as the reason why you were coming up short in some of these games. And remember, last year, the Bengals, they weren't getting blown out, right? It was pretty much competitive game. Maybe they were, getting beat too much early, came back, and it wasn't enough late, but it wasn't like they were getting blown out.
Please put in the chat, tell me, off the top of my head, off the rip, I can think of one game where they got embarrassed with Joe Burrow at the helm, and that was a game, coincidentally, I went to down in Nashville. We played the Tennessee Titans when he still was dealing with the calf injury in 2023. I think we lost it to drop to 1-3, right? That's the only game off the top of my head, and we got blown out. It was an embarrassment. And I was doing the same thing here that I'm doing down there in Nashville, where I was just, where's the mitigation? Is it unmitigated? Doing all my bits, but was being quite seriously. I can't think of another game in the Joe Burrow era where we've just been dominant, blown out in consecutive games. Perhaps I'm wrong. Let me know in the chat. But go back to your thoughts. Sorry.
Yeah, and look, you are what your record is, right? And remember last year we were all like, God, like this offense is so good, but they're 1-3, and then they're losing more games, whatever. You're 2-2 for now, right? Because you look at that schedule that we just detailed a little bit earlier, and it's kind of impossible to come up with a situation in your head where this team is not 2-4. All right, like how in the world are you going to play Detroit and beat them? How in the world are you going to play Green Bay and beat them with what those two teams are capable of offensively and just how inept you've looked offensively? It doesn't seem like you can keep up. And you look at that schedule too. You got a lot of home games coming up. Again, if you have Joe Burrow, that's a great thing. I don't know if that's a good thing, to be honest with you, that they're playing at home because the Boo Birds are going to be out, and they're going to be out early. And to be honest with you, they'll probably be out this week against the Lions. Even if you're in a spot where you're 2-3, they're going to be out this week. So
stripe the jungle, baby. Stripe it up, baby. Let's go. Stripe it up. Go back, Stone.
But it's just hard to latch on to something that can give you, some positivity. Like, really, the only thing that you consider and say is, well, we got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Okay, great. You've had them all year, and you haven't been able to give them the football. So it's really hard at this point. It's really, really hard to come up with any positive juice in your brain or any positive momentum that was established last night. You're kind of at a loss. And to be honest with you, I couldn't tell you, I haven't felt like this since Andy's last year, the year before you got Joe Burrow. But that year it was like, okay, we know this franchise is heading in a different direction. We're going to get a new quarterback. We're going to have a top pick. We're going to rebuild this thing. And, you had a first-year head coach in Zach Taylor then at the time. But you're supposed to be in a spot here where you're competing for a world championship. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Think about the offseason you had. Jamar Chase paid him big money. T. Higgins paid him big money. You got the boys together, him and Joe, and then you finally figure out with Trey Hendrickson at the end of the offseason. He'll be here for a year. This was supposed to be a year where you competed for a world championship. And even when Burrow goes down, it was, okay, how can we just hang in there? How can we stay afloat? How can we hang around 500 and see if by chance we can get him back at the end of the year and try to go on another run like we typically do at the end of the year? But how can you even see this team coming up with a win? I mean, if you sit there and lose to the Jets and the Bears, that's a possibility now. We didn't even think that was a possibility when Joe Burrow was playing quarterback. And, obviously everybody in the chat knows nobody defends Zach Taylor more than me, but there's nothing to defend here. There's a real world where you drop every game going into that bye and he's gone. That's a possibility. Do I think the Brown family's going to pull the trigger on that? No, I don't. But that's a real possibility if you continue to not be competitive in these football games. I mean, it is not. I get it's the NFL. I get you're on the road. I get it's hard. But these are supposed to be professionals out there. And I can't think of a team that looks worse. I mean, the Titans, maybe, obviously, they're winless. And the Jets are winless, too. And funnily enough, the Titans got Callahan running the ship. Shoot, he's a Bengal, too. All right? So there's all types of issues here for this team, and there's just nothing positive you can hang on to. The only positive thing is the old cliche. You are what your record is, and you're 2-2. So, you're not 0-4 and you're not 1-3. All right? And I think a lot of people, even with Joe Burrow, said, if you start the year 2-2, we'll take it. Obviously, no Joe Burrow now, so you maybe don't take it, but you're 2-2. And you still got a chance, but it doesn't, looking at the schedule, it doesn't feel like you're going to pick up a win anytime soon.
Well, if you want a good positive, it's that if you like going to Bengals games, tickets are likely going to go down here soon.
True.
Ticket prices. There's your positive spin. Yeah, you said if they lose every game before the bye, they let go of Zach Taylor. I cannot imagine that the Bengals are going to fire Zach Taylor.
Yeah, I just think that it becomes like most other teams would in that spot. But
yeah,
I don't think they will.
It would have to get
It would
have
just
to be
continue.
like what's happened the last 2 weeks happens this week, happens the week after. We're losing by 30 every single week, and they're just like, Zach. Like Mike Brown sits down with Zach, and he just goes, listen, dude, what do you want us to do? You've lost 4 consecutive games, 5 consecutive games, 6, however many games to the bye. You've lost them all by 20 plus, by multiple touchdowns in the NFL. I mean, we can't keep this going. And that won't happen. There'll be a game where they play better. They might not win a game, but it will be competitive as the NFL. But I haven't seen all 32 teams play. Obviously, there's some teams that are winless. Obviously, the Saints look terrible and all these things. I can't imagine a team looking worse than we've looked the last 2 weeks against, quite honestly, mediocre talent. We weren't playing the Bills. We weren't playing the Eagles. We were playing teams that at their peak are 10-win teams. The Vikings with J.J. McCarthy might win 10, 11 games. The Broncos might win 10, 11 games, but they're not true competitors. They're not true contenders, and we got embarrassed. We got embarrassed in back-to-back weeks. The running joke is we could find solace, right? Trying to find solace in the Cincinnati Bengals season. You can't find solace. If we played the Bills, you could find some solace. That's Josh Allen. He's probably the best player in the NFL. This team, they're probably the best team in the NFL. Or the Eagles, that's the best roster. You can't compete with them even on a good day. And then you're finding these are teams we should compete with. Even with a backup quarterback, those are teams that you should be hanging around with. And outside of the first 15 minutes, they never were. They never were. And you look, it's top to bottom. I don't know what we're doing well, where we're doing well. And the most daunting thing, I think, of this all is, let's say that we get what we want and get what needs to happen, which is Zach Taylor needs to go. Unless he rights this ship and we win 5 in a row, and you're like, all right, well, Zach, we're wrong once again. I'm wrong. I've been wrong like 36 times already since starting to host this show. We go, we're wrong. Well, Zach needs to, unless that happens, right? And Zach Taylor is gone. Start thinking to yourself, and this is never a good place to be. This was the argument for years when we had Andy Dalton. Everyone wanted Andy Dalton gone. Like, well, what are we going to do? Who's going to be better than? And, ask yourself, what class of coach the Bengals are going to bring in? Because the one positive thing that you could say over the past few years is there would be a lot of high-end coaches that want to coach with Joe Burrow. And you are right and we're right. There were a lot of high-end coaches that would want to coach with Joe Burrow because they've seen the success. The problem is now the curtain's open and they're seeing how big of a cluster F this all is. And if it's going to be a first-time head coach. So one of the two things. You're either going to get a first-time head coach or a guy off the scrap heap that has failed somewhere else. And the guy's like, I'll try it one last time. I'm damaged goods, but we'll try it one more time and I can save my career. Or the young guy's even probably looking at this like, do I want my first job to be with the Cincinnati Bengals? Even with Joe Burrow, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, do I want that? Because I don't know if I would. And it can't just be Zach Taylor. If we're stripping this thing down, let's get down to the studs. Do a full demo, baby. Front office gone. Duke Tobin gone. Let's get new blood in here across the board. An offensive mind, sure. But just think about the kind of class or the kind of coach we're going to bring in. You want to know? This is hilarious. But you don't want to know if there's a betting market that'd take this if Zach Taylor got fired. If Zach Taylor got fired, you know who would be the most likely candidate, the most likely coach that we'd hire? Stone, who do you think that'd be?
Marvin Lewis? No, I'm just kidding. Who?
It'd be Brian Callahan, more than likely. Like, he would be, I'm not even kidding you, he would, maybe not the best betting favorite, but he'd be a top 3 betting favorite. Brian Callahan, who people were like, this Titans team's terrible, and he's clearly over his head. That's the kind of coach that we'd bring in. We're not the Chargers who were a long time operated like the Bengals and brought in cheap coaches, but they finally ponied up and were like, oh, we'll go get Jim Harbaugh and pay him what he deserves. Also, there's no coach like Jim Harbaugh out there that you can bring in. The highest end guys that you'd get is, Bill Belichick, 90-year-old Bill. And who wants that based off what's going down there in Tar Heel country? That's a joke. So it's like, yes, Zac Taylor's clearly, it's going to get worse, I think. Maybe it can't get worse, but it's going to continue to get bad. And it's going to be abundantly clear that he needs to go and we need to hire somebody else. But then just like, where are we going? Who are we going to hire?
And that's the thing, too, is that I think a large portion of the fan base thinks that, we'll fire him and get some great guy. Well, the Bengals aren't going to pay their head coach. Zac Taylor's the second lowest paid NFL head coach in the National Football League, $4.5 million. Andy Reid's the top guy. He's making 20, right? Tomlin's making 17, 18. Harbaugh, he got big money from the Chargers. He's making like 16. They're not going to – there's always that one hot coach that, everybody wants in whatever cycle comes through. The Bengals aren't going to pay him enough money. So if the Bengals were to fire Zac Taylor and hire somebody else, there's a good chance most people don't even know who the heck they're hiring. Right. Like there would be some guy and be like, who is that? Because he's going to come in and make $4 million. They're not going to change what they do and pay their coach $15, $17, $20 million. They're just not going to do that as an organization. That's not going to change. So firing Zac Taylor, I understand we need to start having this conversation a little bit if you're going to continue to play how you played last night. But it's not like they're going to go out and get some great guy and pay him top-of-the-line money. You're going to get some guy that probably has never been a head coach before that's going to make $4 million, and you're probably going to be stuck in the same type of situation.
Yeah, it's if we could get a guy like the Patriots just got Mike Vrabel that's had success, he's been a leader before, I'd be on it. I'd be all for it. He's been a proven guy that can build something. It's cool. Joe Brady's a name that they just brought up. Yeah, that's actually a pretty good name. I forgot about Joe Brady. I think he's the quarterback's coach for the Bills.
OC, yeah.
He's their OC, okay. And he was the quarterback's coach when Joe was in LSU. Yeah, let's do the LSU thing again, which, honestly, as a fan, that drives me nuts at sometimes. We're going to get Justin Jefferson, and we're bringing the whole 2019 LSU team. What's Ed Ogeron doing? Oh, he's running for Congress or something like that. Maybe we can get him if he loses his ballot. Maybe he'll want to coach again. It's now 15 minutes left in the show, and you guys are tired of me complaining about this. So I'll end this show. I'll end the Bengals segment about this. But it's worse than I could have ever imagined, I think. I truthfully, going into this 2-week period, I said they needed to win one of the games or else things could get kind of hairy. And the big thing that I was talking about getting kind of hairy is conversations about what we do with Trey Hendrickson, because I understood that we probably weren't going to beat the Lions or Packers. I was like, we're going to have to start talking about Trey Hendrickson and start talking about other pieces. I don't know what other pieces we have to offer. And those things kind of can snowball out of control. Jamar Chase could get disgruntled and be really loud in the locker room. Apparently he's had some tweets already. That's what I was worried about, but I could not even imagine that we'd lose to the Vikings by 38 and we lose the Denver Broncos by 25 and look absolutely inept, incompetent, and terrible in the worst team in the National Football League. 13 games left in the season. We're still 2-2. Quick word from our sponsors. The Job Center is now hiring. Start working fast with weekly pay, flexible shifts, and great opportunities at top local employers. Apply in person at any location across 12 states or online at thejobcenter.com. Light up your events with Queen City Screens. Our cutting-edge LED video boards deliver vibrant visuals and crystal clear displays for any occasion. From concerts to corporate events, we've got you covered. Visit queencityscreens.com to rent your LED solution today. Queen City Screens, where brilliance meets impact. Everyone check in on me if about 6 o'clock today a certain baseball team on the north side of Chicago loses. Please check in on me because I might need it. My wife is very frustrated with me because I have not been home a whole lot, and it feels like everything's just piling on top of one another. Stone!
What up?
Your Cincinnati Redlegs play tonight, 9:08. We'll have a full watch along on Chatterbox Sports, so tune in as Nick Kirby and Trace Fowler will you can watch that game right with them, and then they'll have a post-game show afterwards. Hunter Green versus Blake Snell. Your overall thoughts heading into your first postseason game as a Reds fan in 5 years?
It's exciting. Very, very exciting. You got to feel good about who you got toeing the rubber tonight, and Hunter Green. We'll see what lineup Tito decides to put out there. But you got an opportunity here, a big opportunity against this Dodgers team that, they're trying to repeat as world champions, obviously. And there's a lot of pressure that comes with that. And I think the Reds certainly can reap the benefits of that pressure because they've got no pressure. I get it's the postseason. They're all going to be feeling nervous, anxious, so there is some pressure. But when it relates to them actually winning a game and winning this series, nobody thinks that they can do it. And all the pressure is going to be on the Dodgers. And if you can somehow get an early lead in that game, or even just take the first game and really flip that momentum around onto the Dodgers and put them in a spot where they're at home facing off elimination, you could be in a really good spot if you're the Cincinnati Reds. I've got confidence in this series. Maybe I'm just delusional as a fan, and it's been so long since we've been here, and I'm just being overly optimistic. But based on what this team has done from a pitching standpoint, what they've done in the bullpen, and the bats, are they there? Well, they're better than they were a couple of weeks ago. And obviously, Snell, that's not great, right? Remember, I was at the game when Blake Snell was with the Giants and tossed a no-hitter against the Reds, so that wasn't great. Hopefully that doesn't happen, right? Remember Roy Halladay back in whatever year that was? He threw the perfect game. Yeah. That wasn't good.
It was a no-hitter.
It was a perfect game?
It wasn't a perfect game.
It was just no-hitter?
Yeah.
All right. But anyway, you're hoping that certainly doesn't happen again for the Cincinnati Reds. But plenty of reason to be optimistic. We'll see what lineup Tito throws out there. I'm sure we'll all pick it apart when it comes out, and that'll be fun. But, really excited. Postseason baseball is here, and the Reds have an opportunity to save us, right? Because we could just be complaining about the Bengals all week. Now, I guess the Reds could end it tomorrow, and then our happiness lasts for 2 days. But we've got a couple of days here to, help us cope with what's going on with the Cincinnati Bengals. So plenty of reason to be excited.
When you said the Reds, and this is true, they're playing with house money. That's the old adage, cliche. They're playing with house money. They've got nothing to lose. It's true. As a fan, you get in the postseason, you get excited and everything like that, and it feels like you can't lose anything. Has it crept in now that there is ramifications in how you might feel if they lose the series or anything like that? Has that started to creep in, kind of the anxiousness of, we are playing in the postseason, there are things very high at stake? Has that crept into your conscious at all?
A little bit, but it kind of also feels, happy-go-lucky, right? Like just happy to be here. Are we going to be frustrated if, they get smacked in 2 games? Yeah. Or we're going to be heartbroken and devastated if they barely lose this series? Yeah, obviously. But, I've said it a million times on this show. I've said it on my show as well. The season is a win. You made the postseason. I thought it was going to be a failure if you didn't. You pulled through. You got some help. You made the postseason. Now we're here. We'll roll the dice. We'll see what happens. But, obviously, if there's a heartbreaking moment or they do something that is incredibly frustrating in a big moment, we're going to talk about it and we're going to be ticked off about it. But I think you just got to enjoy being here, and hopefully this is something that isn't just a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and they can build some momentum. Hopefully Tito stays for a couple of years. Some of these younger guys can continue to get better. You can build off this pitching staff and find yourself in a spot where you're ultimately doing this on a semi-regular basis and eventually put yourself in a position where you really have a chance to win a world championship. Obviously, you're in, so you technically have a chance at winning the world championship, but obviously if you take a look at the odds, they've got the longest odds to win it. So, there's lots of things that are going to be difficult when it comes to doing that. But for me, it's just kind of happy-go-lucky. We'll see what happens. You got a chance. Nobody believes in you. Your backs are against the wall. You haven't been able to be killed yet to this point. We'll see if that continues in LA.
It is a cool spot because I haven't listened to local talk radio in LA, so I don't know how they're feeling as a fan base. Maybe they're feeling one of 2 ways, if I had to imagine. Dodgers fans, and it's a big contingency. I went to a game at Dodger Stadium 5 years ago, and I was amazed by how much chatter there was, just around the city. I think I bought a Dodgers hat, wore it around town. They're like, "Did you watch the game last night?" There was a lot of chatter. People were asking me. So it's obviously a very proud fan base. They're probably feeling one of 2 ways, if I had to imagine. Option 1 is they are very anxious about this 3-game series, to where they're like, "Man, we were billed as the best team ever built before the season. We were talking about, breaking the win record of 120 games or whatever it is, the 2001 Mariners. We were talking about doing that, and you barely scrap by and win the division. I don't think they won 90 games, or if they did, they won exactly 90 games, which is still a very good team. And there's this level of anxiousness as the defending World Series champs. By the way, a team hasn't won back-to-back in baseball since, 99, 2000, New York Yankees. There's probably a sense of anxiousness, be like, man, this is just a 3-game series. We could just lose 2 games to, a really good pitching staff, and you could build up, an anxiousness. Or they're going into this thing like cocky as all get out, and just like, dude, I ain't worried about the Cincinnati Reds. Either way, it's a really good spot for Reds teams to be in. You can wonder how many Reds players off the top of my head have played in the postseason before. Hunter Green has it, Tyler Stevenson has it, and I don't think any veterans have.
Trevino's the only guy.
Yeah, Jose Trevino.
Yeah.
Did Austin Hayes play for the Orioles? I think Austin Hayes actually had a pretty big hit for the Orioles back when he played. But this is new ground for a great crop of the Cincinnati Reds roster. And as coaches will tell you, sometimes it's good not to know what you don't know. And the heaviness, the weight of situations won't weigh on you because you haven't been looking for it for years. You haven't been waiting for it for 10 plus years, and you're finally here, and it's like, I can't mess this up. That's great. That's a great spot to be in, where you can be loose in this atmosphere. You can just play. You can kind of just play ball. Let me know in the chat if there's any other names that have had significant playoff experience.
We mentioned Lux, obviously.
Gavin Lux. Yeah. Austin Hayes. I'm trying to think of any others.
Pagan, maybe with Tampa.
Okay.
Game or 2, maybe.
Okay. Littell didn't, right? And by the way, I don't know. What's your opinions on Zach Littell starting game 2?
Yeah, look, they got Dolo in the pen. I think the leash on Littell is going to be incredibly short. There was conversation about being a potential bullpen game anyway, and I think it'll probably kind of look like that. If he gives up a couple of big hits early, he's going to get pulled. They're not going to let him ride by any stretch of the imagination. Then if it goes to 3, you roll Abbott out there, and you see what happens. But I know some people are bent out of shape about it, but they'll go to somebody in the pen really early if it gets ugly. But, he's a veteran guy. Look, without Littell, you're not in the playoffs. So, he's done good things for you. I get the frustration. Is it because they don't, want another lefty against this Dodgers lineup? I don't really know exactly what the thought process is. I know they don't want to, mess with it. Tito basically was saying, it's his turn. He's going to go. It's his day. And we'll see. But if he gives up a run or 2 early, that leash is going to be very, very short.
You guys were awesome. We did not mention Gavin Lux, who has won 2 World Series.
No, I said Lux. We said Lux.
Okay.
Yeah. They're clowning us in there.
2 World Series. He's had 71 at bats, pretty significant. 71 at bats, pretty batting 197 though in his playoff experience. So yeah, you're in a really good spot. The Reds are to whatever happens. And there will be a sense of anxiousness that probably fills up fans as you get closer to game time. It gets around 8 p.m. and you're waiting for it all day. Much like us Bengals fans did yesterday for the primetime game. Don't know what happened there. And you'll get to the point and you're like, man, I feel like I'm going to explode. And hopefully the players aren't feeling like that. And this is where, for the negative and positives of Terry Francona, where it seems like you can't ever wrap your brain around every decision, including Zach Littell starting tomorrow. For everything, the reason that you bring a guy in that has as much experience, where he has won a World Series, he's been to another one. He's won 2 World Series. Yeah, one in 2004 and 2007. You bring in a guy like this to kind of calm the nerves, or kind of be a spearhead for this team going into the postseason, and you hope you can corral the team and do something cool. Do something cool. The Reds have not advanced in the postseason in 30 years. It's the longest running postseason drought in the MLB. I think in the MLB. And I think it's in professional sports, because the Browns beat the Steelers a couple years ago. So I mean, I don't know if you like trends, but it was 31 years for the Bengals. That's how long they waited to advance in the postseason. The Reds are exactly at 30 years, 1995, that NLDS game with Hamilton's own Mark Lewis hitting the pinch hit grand slam. Put them over. I think they're playing the Phils. I think it was the Phils. Maybe the Giants. Maybe Dusty Baker's Giants. I don't know off the top of my head. Someone let me know which team that was. But it's just a great opportunity. And it would be a really, really cool story to where you look at the end of the year and a season where baseball, though it's growing, has had more and more conversations about what they do competitive balance-wise, what they need to do with this payroll that's seemingly exploding with teams not giving a crap about how much money they're blowing. Teams like the Los Angeles Dodgers and the New York Mets and the Reds are the team that can knock off the biggest spender in the league and the second biggest spender in the league. That'd be pretty freaking cool for this city. And nothing gets this city going like postseason success. We saw it. Fans coming out of the woodworks for the Cincinnati Bengals in 21-22. Maybe they should go back into the woods because it's not looking good going forward. But you'll see a vibrancy to this city unlike any other if the Reds can win 2 games down there in L.A. starting tonight at 9:08. 10:57. My voice is gone. Tired. I got home at like 1:30. Woke up at 7. Stone, thank you so much for helping us out. Give us a tease for what we're going to be talking about on the Stone Shield Show today.
Lots to unpack with the Cincinnati Bengals, and we spent some time talking, obviously, here on Off the Bench, but plenty more stuff to revisit, all the offensive issues, the defensive issues. We'll talk Zach Taylor. We'll talk Jamar Chase, what he had to say after the game there as well. We'll talk Jake Browning on the show. Also got my NFL power rankings going into NFL Week 5. Lots of changes. Some teams that were on the list last week suffered some defeats in their respective games this week. We'll do our MLB playoff predictions. You want to do yours real quick? We had 2 minutes off the top of your head, or you don't want me to put you on the spot like that? You got a World Series winner taking bias out, or are you just going to say the Chicago Cubs? We'll go game by.
I can't give an honest.
Okay.
I can't give an honest thing. I do think it's surprising. Truly think it's surprising that the betting favorite in the American League to win the pennant is the Mariners. And I understand that they've got the best pitching staff. I understand that they have Cal Raleigh. I see all that stuff, but they're 2-1 right now to win the American League pennant. I find that surprising, and I find it unlikely that they win the American League pennant because that is a team that has long been mired in not a whole lot of success in Major League Baseball. Who do you got coming out of the American League?
Well, I'm not going to spoil it now, Reed. Come on.
Okay. All right.
But I will say, I think the Red Sox are going to pull off a little mini upset and take out the Yankees. And that side of the bracket's kind of fun. Just the AL East, winner plays Toronto, right?
Yeah, it's going to be. Yeah, I mean the Yankees. I mean, talk about Fox and the AL's on Fox, right?
Yeah.
The NL's on TBS.
Yeah.
Or no, it's on ESPN now.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right.
On
You're
ESPN.
right. You're right. Yeah.
It used to be always on TBS. I mean, you couldn't be happier if you're Fox. I mean, getting Yankees, Red Sox, and getting that one back. I was surprised to hear that the Red Sox hadn't been to the postseason since 2021. The Red Sox, I always compare them to LSU college football, to where they just kind of hang around, and all of a sudden they like put together like the greatest team you've ever seen. Like LSU's done that multiple times now in my lifetime, and it's just like they're nothing. No, they'll win the championship and dominate everyone along the way. So yeah, that's really exciting. If you had me, put me on the spot.
Yeah, let's hear it. World Series, who's winning?
I'll tell you who's going to win the American League pennant, and it's going to be the Toronto Blue Jays.
Okay.
I got the Toronto Blue Jays winning the American League pennant, and I can't say anyone for the National League. I'm saying this, and this is how I'll wrap up the show.
I'm
truly happy for the Cincinnati Reds. As I mentioned, I do the bit all the time. Everyone I like, respect, love, work with, friends, family, everyone that I know, for the most part, other than college friends, are Cincinnati Reds fans. And it's awesome that Reds fans are getting postseason baseball tonight. And I want the Reds to win unless the Cubs lose their series. And then I'll get really spiteful. And I don't think I work out of spite all too often, but my brain can't have the Cubs lose and the Cubs advance. I can't have that. I'm just laying it out there to where if the Cubs get eliminated and the Reds move on, I can't have that for my brain or my heart, my poor little heart, which is going to be working overtime because I made a dumb tweet yesterday, which, by the way, if you guys want to, I'm hopefully she's not watching this. My wife is very mad at me because I got up really early after being at work all night last night, and I got up and I started running and didn't spend any time with her or the dogs. Didn't take the dogs on a walk, and she was upset with me. And I was like, "Hey, I'm sorry." And I was like, I made this tweet where I said I'd run a mile for every point the Bengals lost by. They're not going to lose. And she said, "Do you hear yourself? You're actually the biggest douchebag in America." That's my loving wife. We love each other very much. But yeah, she's true. I sound like a douche. So, but I put the tweet out, so I'm gonna finish it. Stone, have fun on your show.
No, I appreciate it.
See you guys.
There we go. Welcome into the Stone Shields Show. I am your host, Stone Shields. Plenty to discuss here on a Tuesday morning. Obviously, got to start with the Cincinnati Bengals as they get embarrassed once again. Back-to-back weeks of just pure embarrassment for the Cincinnati Bengals. Lots to unpack when it relates to that game. Is the season done? Are the Bengals cooked? Should Zach Taylor be fired? Do the Bengals need to trade for a quarterback? Is there any hope? Is Joe Burrow coming back? Plenty of stuff to discuss as it relates to the Cincinnati Bengals. So obviously that is kind of a negative start, obviously, to our Tuesday morning here at the show. But we do have some positive things to discuss as well. The fact we are sitting here on September 30th, talking about Cincinnati Reds baseball. Obviously, that is incredibly, incredibly exciting. We're going to break that down, obviously, on today's show as well. Reds, Dodgers, Hunter Green, Blake Snell, 9:08 this evening on the West Coast in Los Angeles as the Reds are back in the postseason. Shoot, they were there in 2020. Obviously, prior to that, 2013, a wild card loss against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Have an opportunity to pick up a playoff win in advance in the postseason for the first time in forever. If they can pick up 2 games in Los Angeles, we will see if they can do it. But plenty to be excited about as it relates to the Cincinnati Reds. Also, it is Tuesday. That means it is time for my NFL Power Rankings as well. Here on the show, my top 10 teams in the National Football League here at this point through 4 games. Cincinnati Bengals obviously are not on the list. Where I would rank them among the 32, I'm not quite sure, but there's a real chance that this Cincinnati Bengals team could be near the very top of the draft next April. That is a real possibility. Hopefully they can pick up some wins. You don't feel too good about the next 2 weeks against the Packers and the Lions, or the Lions and the Packers, I should say. Have a couple of winnable games after Pittsburgh. You got the Bears and the Jets. You think you should win those games heading into the bye? We'll see. But based on how they've played the last 2 weeks, they look like a team that should be picking in the top 2 or 3 of the NFL draft next April. MLB playoffs start today. That's very, very exciting. This is like the best time of the year when it comes to sports. You got college football, you got the NFL, and you got the MLB postseason. It doesn't really get any better than this, period here in October as a sports fan. And the NBA basketball will be starting in a couple of weeks there as well. So that certainly is very, very exciting. We'll go through each series. I'll give my predictions. We did that for the NFL, obviously, prior to the season, but now we have the postseason bracket obviously in place. I'll pick who I think is going to win the World Series. We'll go series by series, have a little bit of fun with that. We'll talk Reds-Dodgers, obviously, on the show. Not going to get a lineup, unfortunately, from the Cincinnati Reds while we are live on the show. We will have reactions to the lineup, by the way. Those will go out. Nick Kirby will have one out right when the Reds release it. He'll have a reaction to that. And you don't want to miss any of the Reds coverage here at the channel. We're obviously going to spend a little bit of time talking about it on the show today. Spend a little bit of time talking on about the Reds with Off the Bench there as well. But plenty of Reds coverage out on the channel. There's a podcast that went up earlier this morning. They'll be live during the game. Nick Kirby, Trace Fowler. They'll have a pregame. They'll have a postgame. Your one-stop shop for the best Cincinnati Reds coverage is right here at Chatterbox Sports. Got an incredible Reds crew here, so don't miss out on any of that. They've got you covered basically all day long. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about them to close out today's show. All right, appreciate everybody for being here on this Tuesday. Let's get right into it. The Bengals get absolutely blasted last night on Monday Night Football, and going into the game, my mindset was, did I think they necessarily were going to win the game? I was kind of 50-50 on whether or not they would actually win the football game. But one thing that I did think was going to happen is I thought the Cincinnati Bengals were going to be competitive in the football game. I thought it was going to be a borderline one-score game. The point spread was 7.5. I thought that was a number that Cincinnati was going to be able to cover. I thought they would show some fight. I thought they would show some resilience. I thought they would take at least a step in the right direction offensively, and obviously that did not happen. Let's start with the beginning of the game. You get the ball, and you go down the field, right? You do a nice job. You pick up some first downs there on that first drive. You saw some improvement in the run game. We're not going to sit here and celebrate what the Bengals did on the ground in this football game, but, 53 yards rushing, that obviously is horrible, but Chase Brown, 4 yards a carry. We haven't seen him be at that clip yet throughout this season here to this point. So not going to sit here and celebrate the run game, but on that first drive, it was like, okay, we can get a little bit of a run game going here. The screen game, right? We talk about that a lot on the show. When Jake Browning was at the helm in 2023, Joe Burrow was down. What did the Bengals do offensively that helped keep them afloat? The screen game. It was very, very impactful for them a couple of years ago. You saw it on the first drive. Getting the ball in your playmaker's hands. Jamar T. Higgins. We said, got to get the ball to T. Higgins. Early in the game, you did that, and you tried to do that. But obviously, when you look at the end of the game, and you go, well, he had 3 catches for 32 yards. Jamar had 5 catches for 23 yards. That's not getting it done. Those are your top dogs. That is your team. That is your salary cap, right, with those 2 players, considering Joe Burrow is down. Got to find more ways to give him the football, and it obviously did not happen. So you pick up some first downs. You're moving the ball. It's a good Denver defense, right? They were 1-2 going into last night. Do I think Denver's going to win the Super Bowl? No, but I would bet on them probably being a playoff team at this point. Are 3 going to come out of the West? We'll see. I didn't have Denver before the season in my postseason, playoff predictions. But, right now, Sean Payton, Bo Nix looked a lot better. It wouldn't surprise me, right, if Denver is a playoff team. Same thing with Minnesota. Not predicting them to get in, but wouldn't surprise me if they got in, considering how good their coaching is. But let's be very clear here. You're not playing some of the top teams in the NFL. You're going to do that here over the next couple of weeks, by the way, with the Lions and the Packers, and you just got absolutely shelled by both of these teams and looked completely incompetent throughout the process. I don't have an issue with Zach Taylor kicking the field goal. I mean, when you lose 28-3, this doesn't really get talked about, but I think some people were frustrated with Zach kicking the field goal there on the first drive. I was saying kick the field goal, right, after what happened last week. You pick up some first downs on that first drive. You establish a little, momentum, like, okay, we're here, we're on the road, prime time, backup quarterback. We just got blasted last week, have an opportunity to take a lead in this game, pick up 3 points. I was totally fine with it. The third down play to T. Higgins, loved trying to get T the ball, but Jake Browning just panicked. Horrible pass, didn't even give T a chance. And then when you have it go that badly, you sit there and you question, what are you running there on that 3rd and 2 play? I get it. I didn't have an issue with them kicking the field goal, taking the points. And honestly, after that drive, I was like, all right, here we go. I wasn't in a situation where I was frustrated that they didn't get a touchdown. I was like, that's a good defense. You played like one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in pro football the previous week. You went down, you scored some points. Let's go from here. And then obviously it was all downhill from that point. And all you proceeded to do was punt the football offensively throughout the remainder of that football game. So all you did was punt the ball. All right, you took a knee before the half, so that was good. That was positive, right? But other than that, all you did was punt the football. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about punting the football. I get Rico had some big boots, but he had 2 shanks in the game as well, and he had one last week. You're an NFL punter. That's 3 shanks. I don't care how often you're punting. That's 3 shanks in the course of the last 2 weeks. Unacceptable. Can't happen from your punter. But we're not going to sit here and belabor, the point of, the punter can't do it. That's why no, we're not going to do that. But obviously, lots of things happened in the game that weren't good. Let's start with the offensive side of the football. There are got to be some things that you do creatively that put your team in a position where you can pick up some first downs and look competent. Zach Taylor was unable to do it after the first drive. Zach Taylor on script, especially with Joe Burrow, the Bengals usually go down and score points early in a game. Just based on the Zach Taylor era, that typically happens. Again, it happened last night, but then you get off the script and then things went sideways, and they went sideways in a hurry. Now, when you're going 3 and out, you don't really have an opportunity to run a lot of plays. So if you run one play and it doesn't work, you're behind the 8 ball. And that's kind of the situation that the Bengals found themselves in last night. The plan that they had on that first series, the screen game, right? Having some success, little success. It feels crazy to say it, but you ran the football and you got past the line of scrimmage, right? Which, based on what you've done throughout the first 3 weeks in the season, that is considered an improvement, right? But then you got away from some of those things. Next thing you know, you're just kind of throwing jump balls to T. Higgins. I get it. I love getting the ball to T. Higgins. Had the big play, 35-plus yard play that got called back from a penalty. You had the one play, there on that first drive, it was the best ball Browning has thrown this year. T. Higgins, high points football, hauls it in. That's great. But then you just kind of started doing some questionable things offensively. Jake Browning, I tell you what, man, he doesn't look good. And I get he's under siege. I get he doesn't have much help. I get he doesn't have a run game. I get he's got no time to throw, but he looked tight, and he looked nervous, and he looked scared to make a mistake in that game. We talked about him being reckless his past 2 outings. Jacksonville, he got away with it, was still able to win the game, but was incredibly reckless against the Minnesota Vikings, and then he really dialed it back, and it was an ultra-conservative plan, and he was not letting it rip whatsoever. He looked really, really tentative in the ball game. And it doesn't matter what Cincinnati, how good they could possibly get around Jake Browning. And trust me, they've been really, really bad around him. But it's the NFL. The quarterback has to make some plays. I don't care how good his guys are around him, right? People used to always pick on Brock Purdy. Oh, it's just the guys around him. No, he's a quarterback in the National Football League. He made plays. He makes plays. Jake Browning has to make plays, and he has made no plays, right? And it's very, very evident that he can't do even close to what Joe Burrow can do. And, spoiler, we were saying this from the minute Joe Burrow went down. I sat here on this show and I said, look, people, you want to be positive? I'm a positive guy. You want to be optimistic? I'm optimistic. That's totally fine. All right, you think we can still hang in there and win some games? Yes, you still should have the expectation, this is before the past 2 weeks, that the Cincinnati Bengals could go in and win some games with Jake Browning. But if you have this perception in your mind that you think it is going to look even relatively similar to the way it looks with Joe Burrow out there, you're absolutely out of your mind. You're crazy, because it ain't. He's a backup quarterback, and he looks like a backup quarterback here over the course of these past few games. Jay Morrison made this point on the Growler podcast immediately following the game with Paul Daniel Jr. of The Athletic. Couldn't agree more. All right, when you're watching the Cincinnati Bengals play offensive football, the pocket always collapses. That's just basically what happens. More times than not, the quarterback gets the ball, he drops back, the pocket collapses. Joe Burrow, he escapes the pocket, and your heart starts to race. You go, oh boy, here we go. Something spectacular is about to happen. He's going to find somebody down the field. He's going to extend. He's going to do some crazy stuff. This is awesome. You don't get that feeling at all when you see Jake Browning escape the pocket. Your thought process is, okay, can he get close enough to out of bounds and out of harm's way where he can throw the football away? Or is he going to get tackled and lose 10 yards? That's where your mindset is. There's no excitement when you see Jake Browning rolling out from outside of the pocket. You're sitting there going, all right, are they going to get to him, or is he going to be able to throw it away? Nothing positive is going to happen in that situation. Jamar Chase, frustrated. Right? Obviously, if you watched the game, you saw him go over to Zach Taylor. I've got no issues with it. One, people are kind of blowing it out of proportion a little bit. saying basically that, he was going over and it was this big argument with Zach. No, it was very cordial, right, between the two. Obviously, he was animated. Obviously, he was fired up. Obviously, he's ticked off with punting the ball every single time on offense and obviously not getting the football as well. Zach Taylor, after the game, spoke about it, and he basically said all the right things, which we'll get to Zach in a second. He's going to continue to say all the right things, all right? But he basically was like, yeah, when my career as a coach is all said and done, I'll look back and Jamar will be one of the favorite people that I've ever coached. Loves what he brings to the building every single game, loves his competitiveness. And to be honest with you, I would like to see that kind of stuff from more of these players, all right? It doesn't seem like they care enough out on the field. They don't. I mean, they're just kind of okay with the way things are going. I want to see more guys get ticked off. I want to see more guys get fired up. I want to see more guys do something about it. Jamar Chase is like the only guy that's doing it. There's got to be people defensively. There's got to be people along the offensive line that take some initiative and get fired up and try to correct some of these problems that they have right now. Let's get to Zach Taylor. Obviously, these past 2 weeks have been awful for the Cincinnati Bengals. And when the team gets blown out like that and is flat out not competitive in the game, that is a direct reflection of the head coach. And the person that deserves the most blame in that situation is the head coach. There have been two things that in Zach Taylor's tenure, love him or hate him, that he's always been able to hang his hat on. One, his team doesn't quit. They fight till the end. And number two, they're disciplined and relatively not very penalized. They don't make too many mistakes when it's procedural stuff, all right? And they don't, have a ton of personal foul penalties. Do they have some? Was there some last year? Yes, I get it. But overall, Zach Taylor's career as the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, those two things, not being a very penalized team and not quitting, are two things he's been able to hang his hat on. He doesn't have those anymore, all right? The penalties yesterday were just outlandish. They were ridiculous. Procedural stuff. I mean, defensively, they had too many guys on the field. They had not enough guys on the field. They had guys that were on the field that had no clue what was going on. Types of things can't happen. All right? And I think a lot of people thought when Burrow went down, Taylor's going to get a free pass. He'll be back next year, right? But if things continue to trend the way they're trending right now, he's got to win some games. He can't end this season with 2 wins and stick around. That can't happen. He's got to find a way to win some football games and at least be competitive in some football games. The Bengals, Mike Brown, you can disagree with this. They're going to give him a long leash. All right, I mean, it's a backup quarterback. It's a lot of turmoil. All right, they're going to give him a long leash. Think about the leash that Marvin Lewis had for all those years. All right, but if you continue to lose games this way over the course of the next couple of weeks, I don't know. They might not have a choice at this point for Zach Taylor. We'll see. He's proven he can get it fixed in the past. And, he's proven he can hang in there, and he's proven that nobody in the NFL, really, besides Kansas City, wins more games at the end of the year than Zach Taylor does. But he's got to get there first. And when you look at this schedule, I mean, again, I mentioned Vikings, Broncos, solid teams, borderline playoff teams. We'll see. But I tell you, definite playoff teams, the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. And they're coming at you these next 2 weeks. And then you got Pittsburgh after that, who might be, I guess, the best team in the division, considering what in the world's going on with Baltimore. So Zach Taylor has got a lot to clean up. He's got to find a way to get this team to rally and compete. He found a way last year, but it was a lot easier finding a way when you had Joe Burrow playing at an MVP level. Now you got a quarterback who looks completely incompetent playing the position for you. How are you going to get this team to rally around him? We'll see. Zach Taylor's got a lot of work to do. He'll continue to say all the right things, but at some point his team has to play better and has to look more competent out there. It's the little things, right? If you're losing a game because you couldn't put together a drive late because you don't have Joe Burrow and you have a backup quarterback, that's fine. That's not a complete reflection there on Zach Taylor. But if you're showing up looking completely unprepared, getting completely outcoached, having penalties, having turnovers, that can't continue if you're Zach Taylor and you want to stick around here. Again, he's going to have the longest leash out of anybody in the National Football League that's a head coach. He's going to have the longest leash. And yes, I know everybody's sitting there, oh, Stone, he loves Zach Taylor, whatever. I fully get this is not even close to being acceptable. And if you had to pick one person to blame, there's a lot of people that deserve a lot of blame. Duke Tobin, all the personnel guys, all the coaches, I get it. But if you had to pick one person, it's got to be the head coach. because these past 2 weeks have not been competitive. They have been completely incompetent as well. I think last week, with what transpired in Minnesota, maybe some of the turnovers kind of masked some of the issues that this team has. Because it was, the message after the game, you turned it over 5 times. Obviously, you're going to get blown out. Turned over against the road, against a solid team, solid organization, you're going to get blown out. Well, guess what? The Cincinnati Bengals won the turnover battle last night. The Bengals did not turn the football over. Yeah, they punted every single time besides the field goal. But they didn't turn the football over, and they were able to pick up that incredible interception from Demetrius Knight in the end zone against Bo Nix. Shoot, if they convert on that, this game's even uglier. Even uglier. So I think some of the turnovers maybe mask some of the issues, and, actually there's a lot of issues here with this team. Oh, yeah, we can't block anybody. Oh, yeah, we're not disciplined. Oh, yeah, we let guys run free in the secondary. Oh, we can't stop the run at all. Oh, we can't stop the pass. There is just a laundry list of issues with this team. I don't know what you can sit here on a Tuesday morning and hang your hat on and say, okay, this is going in the right direction. I don't know what it is. The only thing you can say is, we got 2 of the best wide receivers in the game. Well, guess what? Look at the stat sheet. There isn't many production. There isn't any production from T. Higgins and Jamar Chase here at this point. There's just not. Now, is that completely their fault? Obviously not. Is that, Zach Taylor's fault? Sure. Partially his fault. Jake Browning? Sure. Partially his fault as well. But you can't even get those guys the ball. And you're paying them a ton of money to go out there and play for your football team. So that certainly is a big, big issue as well. We'll see, man. We'll see, because it looks dark right now for the Cincinnati Bengals. What else can you hang your hat on? Dax Hill, he looks really good. He didn't look healthy, by the way, at the end of that game. All right? So I think he's banged up, and even he was great, but he gave up that touchdown before the half. Thought it was basically perfect coverage. That was one of the best throws that we saw all night, one of the best that Bo Nix has had this season. Great job by Sutton hauling it in. But it's who on this team can you say, they're playing good football? Evan McPherson, just because he hasn't even really been in a big-time pressure moment, sure, you can throw him out there, all right? Dax Hill, I guess, maybe, right? But there's just nothing that you can hang your hat on with this team, and there's just a lot of work that has to be done, and the schedule's a gauntlet. It's an absolute gauntlet going forward with the Green Bay Packers in 2 weeks, obviously, on the road in Lambeau, and then you have the Detroit Lions coming up here this week. Now, you have a lot of home games coming up, as Troy Aikman alluded to on the broadcast last night. Is that a positive thing for the Cincinnati Bengals? I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you, because the Boo Birds are going to be out this week. You bet your bottom dollar on that. In this Lions game, that first 3 and out, the Boo Birds are going to be out. So I don't know if that's necessarily a positive thing, that you're going to be at home and have all these home games coming up or not. We'll see. But obviously, a lot needs to get turned around here. Offense clearly had no plan. The offense has now totaled less than 200 yards in 3 of the 4 games, and only 9 first downs in the game last night. Unbelievable. Single-digit first downs for a professional football team that picked up several first downs on that first drive. They had more penalties than first downs. Obviously cannot happen. Gave up 512 yards, outgained by 352 yards. That is the 4th worst differential in franchise history. Bengals obviously had some historical moments last week, as it was the biggest blowout loss in franchise history. Now they're making some more history as well with that disparity and as far as how much they're outgained as well. Now, defensively, a lot of the same issues you saw last year. Now, look, they're going to need some more help from the offense. That's just reality. And I think a lot of us understand that. Do I think they're better defensively than last year? Yeah, but they've got all types of issues. The pressure rate is probably the biggest one, and that's something this team has struggled with for 3 years. Obviously, the Broncos were able to mitigate Trey Hendrickson last night in the ball game, and that meant the Bengals got no pass rush. Nobody could get home. Hendrickson was horrible. Osai was horrible. Murphy was horrible. The guys up the middle, Slate and BJ, they were horrible as well. And if you can't find a way to apply some pass rush on the opposing quarterback with the weaknesses that you have at the second and third level of your defense, it's going to be tough sledding for you all year. And I don't know if you're in a spot where it's like, well, we just got to blitz all the time. Because then you're just kind of, it's self-deprecating at that point because you send guys and none of them can get home or even get close to getting home, and then it's just easy for the quarterback. I mean, there was a couple of times where they brought some pressure last night, and you're like, oh, they're not even close to the quarterback. Oh, here's a completion, and then you saw an easy throw and catch from Bo Nix. In the NFL, if you bring pressure and aren't even close to getting home to the quarterback, it's going to be a serious, serious issue for you. And you're going to give up a lot of yards, you're going to give up a lot of chunk plays, and you're going to give up a lot of points as well. And that's something that we even saw with Lou Anarumo a couple of years, where it's like, all right, here are the Bengals, they're sending pressure. Oh, they're not even close. Here comes a big play. And you saw that in the game last night as well. Plenty to unpack throughout the course of the week with the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, people are going to be calling for Zach Taylor's job. The Bengals continue to take it patient with him for now. But you look at that schedule, Lions, Packers, how can you, in your mind, even if you're super optimistic, and I'm certainly a very optimistic person when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals, how can you even sit here and say that they're going to be in a one-possession game in either one of those games, or the deficit's going to be single digits? It's tough to come up with that answer right now after watching what went down last night and obviously what went down in Minnesota. I think in a lot of ways last night was even worse than what happened in Minnesota, because the Minnesota, it was the 5 turnovers. It was obviously you're going to get blown out if you lose the turnover battle in that margin. Last night you won the turnover battle, and you were just completely uncompetitive in the football game. And obviously that is a massive, massive issue for the Cincinnati Bengals. All right, let's transition our conversation here to some more NFL stuff as we have my power rankings here on Tuesday, as we typically do here at the show. Got some new teams making an appearance in the power rankings here this week. And without further ado, let's hop right into it. All right, coming in at the number 10 spot in my power rankings is the Indianapolis Colts. They were at the 10 spot last week. They suffered a defeat against the Los Angeles Rams, who, by the way, are a really, really good football team. We'll get to them in a second, but the Colts are still very formidable. There were some things that went down in that game. The A.D. Mitchell, it should have been a touchdown, right? And then he loses the ball as he's right about to cross the goal line. Should have been a touchdown. Instead, it is a touchback. When that happens in an NFL game, that is really, really hard to overcome. I still think the Colts are a solid football team. Daniel Jones still playing the best football of his career. They have a really capable coach in Shane Steichen, a weak division. In the AFC South, I still have them as a top 10 team despite the loss, still penciled in at that number 10 spot. Making their debut in my power rankings is the Seattle Seahawks. They're a really solid football team. They got lots of players on the defensive side of the ball. They fly around. They make plays. They cause havoc. Year 2 for Mike McDonald. Of course, he is a defensive-minded guy, and if you can play defense, particularly in that division, the NFC West, that can set yourself up for success. Sam Darnold continues to play very competent football at the quarterback position. There was reports that he had some interest potentially in going to the Las Vegas Raiders, and Tom Brady shut it down, and instead they get Geno Smith. Well, that's a serious, serious mistake if you're the Las Vegas Raiders. Sam Darnold is playing solid football. I think it's just time for people to understand that. He's a solid NFL quarterback. Is he a Super Bowl caliber, championship caliber NFL quarterback? No. But he's solid, and he can win some football games in this league, and he continues to prove that. He's now proving it in Seattle. They've got a good culture. They've got good young players. JSN, after the departure of DK Metcalf, is stepping up and looking like a wide receiver 1 in this league. Cooper Kupp still has some ability. They can run the football with Walker and Charbonnet. So this is a team that has a lot of talent. They're playing really, really hard for their coach, and one of the most underrated defenses in the National Football League as well. Seattle starting to look like perhaps a playoff team at this point out of the NFC West division. At number 8, I have the Green Bay Packers. Past 2 weeks have been weird for Green Bay, to say the least. Look, I thought, after the first couple of weeks, they were the best team in pro football, and then they lose an ugly game against Cleveland. Sometimes you have that kind of a game against the Browns, considering how good that defense is, but obviously that's a horrible loss. I thought they were going to come back in a big way and handle Dallas with relatively no issues on the road, and obviously it's a weird game. They don't lose the game, and they don't win the game. They tie the game. I think that's something that needs to get fixed in the NFL, by the way. It's absolutely ridiculous that you're playing a pro sport and that there is a tie. This isn't soccer. There should always be a winner and a loser. That's got to be fixed. But regardless, Offense was fine, right? 40 points. That Dallas defense is one of the worst in the National Football League, but that Green Bay defense is supposed to be really good. Hafley's been excellent to start the season. They were bad in this game, but in large part due to Dak Prescott. In a lot of ways, what Dak Prescott is doing right now is kind of reminding me what Joe Burrow did last year. I thought Joe Burrow, by the definition, was the most valuable player in the league last year. Obviously, he wasn't going to get it because his team missed the playoffs. Dak Prescott is looking like the most valuable player in the National Football League right now. Obviously, Allen's playing really good football as well for Buffalo, but Dak Prescott is off to the best start of his career, doing it without CeeDee Lamb, kind of a bad group of receivers, a horrible defense, not much of a run game either. I mean, Dak Prescott has been absolutely sensational to start this season, but Green Bay, that's a game they need to win. If they're going to be serious Super Bowl contenders, they need to win that game. They did not, but still find themselves in the top 10, and really no question about that, but they have taken a step in the wrong direction here over the past couple of weeks. Yep, I warned everybody that Kansas City can still play football. Oh, Patrick Mahomes, he's still upright. Oh, Andy Reid, he's still their head coach. Oh, yeah, they're still going to win football games and make the postseason. That shouldn't shock anybody. They were able to play Baltimore, a team, obviously, a defense that is completely reeling. Felt like only a matter of time before the Chiefs offense could figure it out. They get Xavier Worthy back. Clearly, that was a big addition for them, as that looked like a Kansas City offense from a couple of years ago when they were really kind of scoring points like crazy on basically every possession and just racking it up, and Mahomes was chucking it around the field. Yeah, they looked really, really good in the game. Look out for the Kansas City Chiefs if they can stay healthy. If Mahomes is upright, they're always going to be an issue. And the people that wrote them off, just the fans, that watch the games, and the people in Ashley, not exactly sure what you're doing. Lots of people here in the city of Cincinnati have a lot of hate for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I completely understand that. But they're a really good football team when Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are there as the quarterback and the head coach, and that will continue to be the case. They're at number 7. Expect them to continue to win and find a way in the postseason. Coming in at number 6, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I've been really bullish on the Buccaneers. I think some people probably laughed about how high I had them last week. But Tampa Bay off to a bad start. I mean, the Eagles kind of just jumped on them from the get-go. Was kind of a weird game, right? I've been high on Tampa, but didn't really think there was a chance that they were going to go into or play Philly in Tampa Bay and win that game. They were able to get back in the game late, give themselves an opportunity there at the end. No reason to hit the panic button if you're Tampa. Obviously, they've won some very, very close games, and I don't know if that's something you can necessarily rely on, albeit the Chiefs obviously did it last year. We will see. I still think Tampa's going to win that division. I still think they're going to be a threat in the postseason. No shame in losing to the best team in professional football. Baker Mayfield, still really, really good. Ibuka looks like the pick of the draft as well at that wide receiver position. They're going to be just fine, but had to drop them down a little bit after losing, of course, to the Philadelphia Eagles. Another team that lost this weekend as well is the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers go to New York, fly across the country. Jackson Dart, of course, has a solid game, and he looks like he can be an NFL quarterback. And candidly, they probably should have went with Dart to begin the season in New York. I'm not pressing the panic button at all. If you're the Los Angeles Chargers, play an early game, cross the country, right? These things happen. Herbert, he's going to be just fine. Didn't think he had a bad game by any stretch. You got to give a lot of credit to what the Giants were able to do. They played with a lot of enthusiasm, and they played like their coach was fighting for his job. He clearly was, and they played for their young quarterback and played really, really well. The Chargers are going to be just fine. They're going to be an 11-12 win team this season, but nobody goes undefeated in the NFL. That's just kind of the reality of the situation. Detroit in at number 4. Dan Campbell has the boys playing really, really hard. Some people tried to write them off after their disappointing Week 1 game against Green Bay. We said that was premature. Obviously, it was. The Bengals are going to have their work cut out for them this week against the Detroit Lions. New coordinators. It takes some time to get comfortable once again, but that run game for Detroit is really, really good. That two-headed monster of Montgomery and Gibbs is still really, really good. That offensive line, they have some new pieces in there based on what they were doing last year, but Jared Goff, with time, can flat out deliver the football to his playmakers. Amon-Ra, obviously a great player, and you're starting to see them make some defensive improvements as well. Hutchinson, having him back, obviously is huge for Detroit. They are going to be a force to reckon with as this season continues to progress. Another team that I've been really high on, obviously, is the Los Angeles Rams. They pick up a big win against the team in the Indianapolis Colts, who, of course, were undefeated going into that football game. And the Rams, Stafford, playing at an incredibly high level. He just continues to age like fine wine, to be completely honest with you. He's a really, really great quarterback. And Puka Nacua, I think you could sit there and say, especially considering what's going on with the Bengals offense and Jamar Chase, I think Jamar is still the most talented receiver in the game, but right now it looks like Puka Nacua is the best wide receiver in pro football, and when you have Devontae Adams across from him, that's a serious issue for opposing teams. They've got arguably the best coach. They've got a really, really good quarterback. That defense is young. They're disciplined. They fly around. They make plays. They rush the passer. And predicted, obviously, the Rams to go really, really far in the postseason. I still believe that if Stafford can be healthy, they are an incredible football team. Have them at number 3. No change here at the top with the top 2. Buffalo at that 2 position. I think New Orleans maybe gave them more of a fight than some people anticipated coming into that football game. But the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, still a machine, still an offensive juggernaut. They're going to continue to be that way. Obviously, some people with Zach Taylor and the Bengals continuing to struggle are going to say, get Joe Brady here in Cincinnati, give him an opportunity with his LSU boys. We're not quite ready to have that conversation yet here at this point, but Joe Brady certainly has been fantastic for that team. Still have some questions with Buffalo defensively, but nobody at the quarterback position really. Obviously, I showed love to Dak Prescott a little bit earlier, but nobody playing better quarterback right now than Josh Allen. He's been sensational. We'll see when they have to face some tougher opponents. They haven't really had to face any real tests here yet to this point, but Buffalo have them locked in at that 2 spot, and pretty clearly to me, the best team in the AFC here at this point. And then Philadelphia, how about them? They keep finding ways to win football games. When the run game's not there, obviously what we saw late against the Rams, winning that game and then knocking off a really, really good Tampa Bay team there as well. The Eagles are clearly the class of the NFL right now. We saw them a couple of years ago get off to this crazy hot start, and then they just lost all their momentum. They were dropping football games left and right. People were talking about job security, the head coach. Obviously, they were able to regroup and then ultimately win a Super Bowl championship last year, and they are the clear front runner to win the Super Bowl again. Not going to sit here and make that prediction here at this point, but they fly around. They make plays on defense. They get after the quarterback. Quinyon Mitchell, certainly a guy that can go out there and cover guys. I still think they might need to add another corner there for the Philadelphia Eagles. Offensively, they got weapons all over the place. Barkley, Hurts, Smith, A.J. Brown. And say what you want about Sirianni, but he continues to win football games and continues to put his team in a good spot. And if you're a football fan, it is very, very clear that the Eagles are the best team in pro football at this point. We will see when and if somebody is able to knock them off that pedestal. All right, so there you have it. Power rankings going into Week 5 here in the National Football League. As always, we will put that out as a video on YouTube. Get in the comments. Let me know what you think, what you agree with, what you disagree with. Certainly happy to have some dialogue as it relates to that as well. All right, before we talk about the Cincinnati Reds, let's roll through the MLB postseason. We will have our predictions here on the show for how we think this is going to transpire, who's going to win these wild card rounds, who's going to advance, DSCS World Series. We're going to run through it all here on today's show, and then we'll see, obviously, how it transpires as the first playoff game about a couple of hours here before that is underway, less than a couple of hours before that is underway. So very, very exciting time of the year as well. So we'll start with the one that everybody wants to talk about, obviously, is the Reds and the Dodgers. Look, obviously you see my shirt, right? On this show I'm trying to make it a situation where we're not going to be biased about certain teams, even the local teams, which obviously, I'm a fan of the Reds and the Bengals. Everybody that's tuned in understands that here at this point. But maybe this is me just being overly optimistic about the Cincinnati Reds, but I think they're going to find a way to win the series. I really do. I think they're going to win it in 3. I don't think they're going to win it in 2. I think they pick up a win tonight with Hunter Green. I think he takes them out. I think he's really, really excellent. I think the Reds find a way to score a couple of more runs than the Los Angeles Dodgers. I think they drop tomorrow. They get after Littell a little bit. They go to the pen. They get roughed up a little bit there. And to be honest with you, I'm not so sure that tomorrow night's game here at this point is going to be very competitive. And then I think they go out there with Andrew Abbott and win it in Game 3 in advance to play the Philadelphia Phillies. Cubs are at home against the Padres. They kind of stumbled into the playoffs, which when you're talking Major League Baseball, It's all about getting hot at the right time. You could say that obviously about every sport there as well. I wouldn't say the Cubs are necessarily getting hot at the right time, but I do have a lot of belief in the Chicago Cubs. I don't have a lot of belief in their manager, but just the roster in which they have. I think they'll be able to find ways to come up with clutch hits. I think they're going to play good defense. They have some guys that have some experience there as well. Padres obviously have been a team that has had some success in the playoffs here to this point, and wouldn't surprise me at all if they did. I think the winner of this series, by the way, is going to knock off the Milwaukee Brewers, but I am going to take the Chicago Cubs to win this series again. Even if the Padres win, I think the Padres are going to win again. Coin flip here in this series. Pavetta going tonight. Good chance the Cubs could find themselves down 0-1, but I think Chicago is going to find a way at home at Wrigley to win that series and move on. Tigers and Guardians, flipping things over to the American League. The Tigers, for the beginning and middle parts of this year, looked like the best team in baseball, and then they just kind of completely fell off a cliff. The Guardians get on this crazy run, and they absolutely hunt them down, and because of that, that means this game is in Cleveland and not in Detroit. But Scooble's on the mound. Scooble's on the mound. I think tonight, or today, the Tigers are going to win this game, and then I think they're going to find a way to win one of the next two. To be completely honest with you, the Guardians, they're surging. They're getting hot at the right time. I don't see a way in which the Guardians beat Scooble today in this spot. I think he's going to be nails for him. Obviously, he's one of the best pitchers in the game, if not the best, and I think the Tigers find a way to win this series as the 6th seed on the road and advance. And I also have another upset in the American League. I think the Boston Red Sox are going to take care of the New York Yankees. The Yankees, for much of Aaron Boone's tenure of being the manager for New York, has really, really struggled in the postseason. It was, the Yankees, they're going to win a bunch of games in the regular season, they're going to get to the postseason, and they're going to choke. And then they proved that wrong last year as they went on a little bit of run, but obviously got blown out in the World Series by the Los Angeles Dodgers, and I think they kind of revert back to some old habits here. I think Crochet Fried, I mean, come on, what a pitching matchup. That should, you would think, be a low-scoring game. I'm going to side with Crochet as it relates to that pitching matchup, to be completely honest with you. And I think the Red Sox are going to go into New York, pull off an upset, and take down the New York Yankees. So that is the wild card round here at this point, and let's move to the divisional side of things here. The Reds, obviously, if they beat the Dodgers, that means they're playing the Philadelphia Phillies, and I think the run ends. I think the Reds snap their streak, right? They get that post-series win, they advance. They have another champagne celebration in Los Angeles, and I think that momentum kind of runs out against Philly. You got to be careful with these teams getting the time off when they get the bye and they don't have to play in the wild card round. You've seen it in recent years. Obviously, Baltimore last year, I thought Baltimore was going to, win the World Series last year, to be completely honest with you, and then they just looked inept. Offensively, the Phillies are having an inter-squad scrimmage, I believe. They're going to be selling tickets, just try to keep, the juices flowing, the competitive juices flowing, keep the bats going there as well. So always have a pause for concern in Major League Baseball when a team has a bye. But I think Philly, they got too many bats. They pitch well too, right? And I just think, Cincinnati, that run is going to end a little bit. There'll be a postseason game, though, here in Cincinnati, which should be very, very exciting. But I have the Phillies defeating the Reds and advancing. Maybe the Reds pick up a game in that series. We'll see. But I think the Phillies handle them relatively easily and move on. Obviously, I hope I'm wrong. Obviously, I hope the Reds continue to win games. But I will go with the Phillies here in this round. I said whoever wins, Padres and Cubs, is beating the Brewers. I still believe that. The Brewers obviously had the best record in baseball. They've had regular season success in the past, but this team cannot win in the postseason. We'll see if it's different with a different manager, which, funnily enough, they're going against a guy that couldn't win for them as their manager, and Craig Counsell. He's the Cubs guy. Do I feel great? I mean, that's the one that to me is just Cubs, Padres. I don't know. I went with the Cubs. I think either team is going to beat the Milwaukee Brewers. So in this case, I have the Cubs, despite the fact they kind of they didn't back in the playoffs, but played bad down the stretch to get into the postseason. I have them defeating the Milwaukee Brewers and advancing there. Now the Mariners, who have the best odds, I think, to win the World Series, which, I get it. That pitching staff is incredible. Cal Raleigh, of course, is putting balls over the fence at an absurd rate. They're a really, really good baseball team. Again, you kind of have that thing. It's like, well, you're sitting there. How are the bats going to translate? You see a lot of upsets in MLB postseason because, I mean, those buys, man, they're tough. You play 162 games. We're basically playing every single day, and then it's like, okay, we're going to stop. We're going to celebrate, all right, that we got in. Now we're just going to stop, and then we're going to have to pick right back up against a team that their season didn't pause at all. They're still going. So there's some cause for concern there, but I just think, they're a better baseball team than Detroit here at this point. Outmatched from a pitching standpoint. They got some really good hitters there as well. And they're just a fun team. Seattle really, really is. And I think they take care of business and beat the Detroit Tigers. Now, the 1 seed, the Toronto Blue Jays, in my bracket here, would face the Boston Red Sox. And that kind of is a fun area of the bracket, right? Because it's, the AL East, right? You got 3 teams that, solid teams, obviously, Red Sox, Yankees, and the Blue Jays. I've got Toronto handling business against the Red Sox. I think Toronto is really, really good. I went to a game when they were here in Cincinnati, top to bottom. They're really good. The biggest thing for them is injuries, right? You have Bichette, who is expected to be good to go. I think that's the plan. He had that knee sprain that kind of cost him the end of that season, in the regular season. You got Ty France, who's kind of a clutch, utility backup player, not an everyday guy, but he's good off the bench. He's on the IL. Bassett as well, one of their arms. So really injuries is the only concern for me as it relates to Toronto, but I think they take care of business and beat the Red Sox. All right, so that means I got the 2 seed, the Phillies, and the 4 seed, the Chicago Cubs, and the NLCS, and the 1 seed Blue Jays, and the 2 seed Mariners. A little chalky there on the AL side of things. We'll start with the NL. I think the Cubs, getting into that series, it feels like they overachieved if they're able to get that far and win 2 series. Again, I've said this several times, but good chance this is the Padres as well in this series. And I think Philly is able to take care of business. They've had a lot of success in the postseason. That ballpark, Citizens Bank Park, when you watch that on TV, that to me embodies the MLB playoffs, right? When I see a postseason game in Philly, that ballpark, that environment on TV is just absolutely awesome. No disrespect to any of the other venues, but home game for the Phillies late in October, it really doesn't get any better than that. They've got guys that have been there, done that, obviously, on their team. They can hit the ball over the fence, timely hitting. It's a veteran group. And really with them, it's just like, all right, when are you going to win the World Series? Like, you've been here, you've won a ton of games, you won a ton of postseason games. When are you going to break through and win a World Championship? I think they get an opportunity to do so in advance to the World Series after defeating the Chicago Cubs. I think the Blue Jays beat the Mariners. Talked about the Mariners rotation, but I think the Blue Jays rotation is really, really good there as well. Picking up Shane Bieber is really, really big. Gossman certainly could throw the baseball really, really well there as well. And I just trust the bats of Toronto a little bit more in that series. So that means I have the Blue Jays and the Phillies. Again, do you feel great about a team that has a bye, that is not playing baseball, and a team, by the way, that has some very, very key injuries? Probably not, but I've been really impressed with Toronto has been able to do this year. I really, really have, and I'm going to stick with them. I'm going to say that they're going to win the World Championship here. It's been an unbelievable year for them. George Springer, I mean, that guy is unbelievable. That guy's just a solid, solid player. I mean, what he was able to do in Houston, and, obviously what he's been able to do here for Toronto in a lot of ways has helped carry that offense. Plays a great center field there as well. If he picks up another one, I think we're talking about him as a Hall of Fame type of guy. Really, really good player. The catcher, Alejandro Kirk, I mean, he's a great player. And the fact that he can hit high up in their lineup too and deliver, he's clutch. Really good player there as well. Varsho now is playing center field, and they got Springer at a corner spot typically. But Varsho's really good defensively. He can do some big things. Vlad Guerrero Jr., we haven't even mentioned him yet there as a big-time bat for them as well. They can pitch. As I mentioned, guys that they have in their rotation, I trust them. Veteran guys, been there, done that. And I just think it's Toronto's year, and that is my prediction here at this point. I think the Toronto Blue Jays take care of business and win the World Series as the number 1 seed in the AL. Obviously, I hope I am wrong. I hope it is the Cincinnati Reds. But, we'll go with the Toronto Blue Jays as my World Series pick. All right, Cincinnati facing off against the Los Angeles Dodgers here tonight. There was some footage of Hunter Green last night. The Reds obviously got to L.A. immediately after that series against Milwaukee. He was walking around on the mound, kind of just getting a feel for it. Obviously, this is the biggest start of his career against a Dodger lineup that's just got dudes up and down that lineup. Obviously, the two names that come to mind are Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts, but you're not in a spot where you can sit there and say, oh, we'll pitch around these guys because they can hurt you throughout the entirety of their lineup. And, this Reds pitching staff and bullpen is going to have to be aggressive in this series, and they're going to have to understand that the reason that they are in the spot is because of them, the pitching. That is why they're here. So they are going to live and die by the pitching. And they got to go out there. Obviously, that doesn't mean, hang a slider over the heart of the plate or throw a fastball right down the middle. You're going to have to pitch with your brain, obviously, but you got to be aggressive, right? Because if you, pitch around guys, walk guys, the Dodgers, they can hit the ball out of the ballpark and they can string hits together better than just about everybody else in the league. And obviously, you're incapable of doing that offensively. So you got to be aggressive if you're pitching. And I expect Hunter Green to be really, really aggressive in this game. And I expect him to pitch really, really well. Is he going to hold him to no runs? Wouldn't say that, but, if I had to take a guess here at this point, obviously it's all speculation, but I think he's going to be able to go 6 or 7 innings. I think he's going to probably give up around 2 runs. And I think he's going to put you in a spot where you have an opportunity to win the game. And it's just going to come down to whether or not you can get guys in. Ellie's going to play great in this series. He's going to play great in this series. I fully am confident in that. And I was really impressed with what he was able to do defensively towards the end of the year, because the knock on him obviously was, move him from shortstop. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's booting too many balls. He's leading the league in errors. That's fine. I think he's going to play a really competent, solid shortstop there as well. And I think he's going to come up with some timely hits. Wouldn't be surprised if he put one over the fence in L.A. either. Reds are going to need him. All right. There's no way they win this series if Ellie is bad. Ellie has to be good, right? And you talk about it with all sports, right? Your stars have to show up in the biggest moments. I don't care if it's NBA basketball, NFL football, right? MLB baseball. Your stars have to show up, and Ellie's got to show up, and I believe he will answer the bell in this series for the Cincinnati Reds. And also, you have to do the little things right. We kind of talk about this with the Bengals, right? With a backup quarterback. Well, it's like, you can't be penalized. You can't do dumb stuff. You can't turn the football over. Well, that kind of relates here to the Cincinnati Reds going up against a juggernaut and the Los Angeles Dodgers. The base running, the decision-making, it's got to be clean. What Spencer Steer did, game 162, trying to go to third base when he was on second base with a ground ball to the shortstop, you can't do that. You can't make those kinds of mistakes in a game like this, especially with an offense like the Cincinnati Reds. When you get guys in scoring position, you have to find a way to get them in because they can't score runs in bunches. They just can't do it. And they've proven that they can't do it, and that's okay because they can still win in some other ways. But the decision-making's got to be really, really good. All right, the defense has got to be crisp, which you got guys in some spots where it's like, well, LV Marte saved the season against Pittsburgh there in the outfield, but obviously new to the outfield. I'm confident. I've gained some confidence in what he's been able to do out in the field, but it only takes one play to kind of, ruin your year, so to speak. So we'll see how he does out there. Tito's going to have a decision. I would not send Sal Stewart out to third base. I would not do it. To me, you traded for Ke'Bryan Hayes. I get he can't hit the baseball right now, but he is as sure-handed as it gets down there at the hot corner. If you have Hunter Green there, the last thing you want to do is give up a run because you can't make a play at third base. I would have Ke'Bryan Hayes down at third base, and I would not think twice about it, to be completely honest with you. Do you think about, using Sal in some other way? Maybe, but, he's a kid, right? It's L.A., it's big. I don't know. I'm not going to sit there and roll the dice with Sal Stewart. Is he one of the first guys that should come off the bench? Yeah. But it doesn't seem like Tito has any plans to taking Gavin Lux out of the lineup. I think you just pencil him in that 3 spot as the DH. I think that's probably, maybe there's a surprise in the lineup. Andujar, obviously, he got some starts there late in the year at that DH spot. But, to me, it kind of just feels like, go ahead and pencil in Gavin Lux at the 3-hole. And as the DH. That's kind of what it feels like to me at this point. We'll see. Which in this series, I think that's a good idea. I think you need Gavin Lux in the lineup. Do you need him at the 3 spot? I would say no, but Tito loves him there. And I get it. You don't really have a great guy that you can put there in that spot. But we'll see. We'll certainly see about that. But, Lux against his former team, a place where he won a lot of baseball games, Lux is definitely in the lineup. McLean. Now you're in the spot where it's like, well, you might have automatic outs there at the end of the order if you got Ke'Bryan in there, and obviously, McLean at this point. But what else are you going to do? You going to put Santiago Espinal in there? You can't do that. So I guess you got to keep riding with McLean. I would not put him anywhere else than the 9-hole, to be completely honest with you. I'd put Matt McLean at the 9-hole, and then you go with it. If you can find a way to get him on the bench, fine, but it doesn't seem like you have trust in anyone else to play that position of second base, maybe Espinal, but clearly you've gone away from that, as you should, by the way. So and McLean's probably penciled in at that 9 spot. But you need your stars to be big. Hunter Green's got to set the tone. I don't want to be Mr. Negative, but Hunter Green goes out there, gets shelled, and can't get out of the 3rd inning. I don't really see how you can win this series. I think Hunter Green has to be good tonight. I'm not going to say it's a – we spent so much time throughout the course of the regular season saying, oh, it's a must-win game. So I'm not saying that at all, by the way, in the postseason, unless, of course, they are facing elimination. Then we'll say it. So I'm not going to sit here and say Game 1 is a must-win. But if you lose with Green on the bump, and then you got Littell the next day on the road against the defending world champions, it feels really, really tough. So I don't think they're in a spot where Hunter Green can go out there and not be elite in this baseball game. Stars got to show up in the postseason. Hunter Green's got to show up tonight. Ellie's got to show up through the course of the series there as well. And you can argue whether or not Spencer Steer's a star or not. I've said before on the show he's my favorite player along with Abbott on this team. He's got to show up in a big way as well. He's got to be clutch. He's been Mr. Clutch for him all season long. He has to continue to be that guy for the Cincinnati Reds in this series. They can't afford a bad series from him. And even when he's not getting hits, he's a guy that can get some walks, all right, work some long at bats, foul some pitches off. That kind of patience, that level of professionalism, that's what Cincinnati's going to need out of Spencer Steer in this series there as well. Got to focus on yourself. If you're the Cincinnati Reds, you can't go into this game scared. There's nothing to be scared of. You are here. Nobody thought you were going to be here. Nobody is expecting you to win this series. Cut it loose. Play with no fear. Play with joy. I want to see smile on these guys' faces. I want to see them flying around the base paths. I want to see them having fun out there. All right? You're on the road. What's going to be a crazy crowd in L.A. against a team that when you stack up their payroll against yours, I mean, it just is not even close. They got dudes that are getting paid a ton of money all over the place. Have fun out there and let it rip. Absolutely let it rip. And Tito is going to win you a game in the series. Trust. He is. And I thought he won them some games down the stretch. You can disagree with some of the lineups, some of the decisions, whatever. The Reds, there were some spots the past couple of years where it's like, okay, can they make a run here? And then obviously they ended up not doing it with David Bell. Year 1 of Tito, he gets them in. That's not a coincidence, by the way. He deserves a lot of credit. You want to say, oh, he's not analytical enough. Oh, he makes too many decisions with his mind and doesn't use the numbers, whatever. That's fine. I'm probably more of a baseball traditionalist than I am an analytical nerd anyway. I don't have a problem with that style of managing. But you have to give Tito credit for getting this team to this point and for them never quitting. Talked about Zach Taylor, how his team looked a little disinterested these past 2 weeks against Minnesota. And, of course, last night against Denver. Can't say that about the Reds. They showed up every single day. That is a direct reflection of their manager. He's brilliant in the postseason. Now he's going to get an opportunity to be brilliant. All right? He knows that he's going to have to be brilliant because he knows the roster that LA's got working the other way. All right? There's a lot of pressure. Look, I think Dave Roberts is a tremendous manager and is a great dude and is a great person for baseball. But he's no stranger to postseason heartbreak. He really isn't. He's had some issues with that in the past. The Dodgers, obviously, they won the World Championship last year, and they won the World Series, of course, in 2020, the COVID year as well. But they should have won a lot more games in the postseason than they have. So if they can get Dave Roberts up on the ropes, if you're Tito, that could spell some really good things for this team. But lots of reason to be excited, lots of reason to be fired up. We've got you covered, all types of coverage, pregame, live stream, post-game. We'll talk about it on Off the Bench. We'll talk about it here on my show, The Stone Shield Show, and certainly very, very fired up about it. That'll conclude our show here on Tuesday. Appreciate everyone that stuck around throughout the entirety of today's program. Obviously, if you missed any parts of the show, that is fine. We will have some clips up on YouTube, but more importantly, we will have the podcast up as well. Wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you get it, subscribe to the podcast. By the way, we certainly appreciate that. Turn your notifications on, all that good stuff. Give me a follow over on Twitter at StoneShields_. We will tweet out the pod at Chatterbox every single day there as well, so you don't miss that. And plenty more exciting stuff coming here on the show as we progress through this week and beyond. As we're starting to get our feet wet here on the show, and I appreciate everyone that sticks around and hangs out with us here on mornings, during the morning between 11 and noon. But go Reds. Appreciate you all, as always, for hanging out. And hopefully the Reds can bring home a victory here tonight. We certainly will have it covered on the show tomorrow. But until then, take care, everybody.